The other day, someone asked me to do a video where I talk about my unpopular music opinions, so here it is. Be warned, most of these opinions are actually unpopular. Don't say I didn't warn you. I hate people who say I like all types of music except for rap and country. Because first of all, no the fuck you don't. If I played Black Dresses for you, you would convulse and have a seizure. Second of all, you probably hate poor people. No, I will not elaborate. When I first saw that video that Chappelle Roan uploaded talking about her weird obsessive fans, I thought to myself, wow, if she's talking about this at her level of fame, if she ever reaches like Taylor Swift levels of fame, she's not gonna be with us for very long, and I mean that literally. I mean, this is not at all a dig at Chappelle Roan, because trust me, I would never want to be famous either. I mean, I've never been famous. At most, I am a very niche internet micro-celebrity, and I've still had people dox me and tell me that they hope I get raped and murdered and left by the side of the road like the piece of shit I am. I think that the reason a lot of Chappelle Roan fans have this kind of parasocial attachment to her is because most of them are LGBT teenagers. And if you've ever been an LGBT teenager, you know that if you find someone who, like, you see yourself in, you kind of latch on to them, because there's just not that many LGBT people out there. Some people have said Chappelle Roan is not cut out for fame, and I sort of agree with that. Like, I think she was meant to be Nicole Dollanganger levels of famous, not like Bjork levels of famous, because we all know what happened to Bjork.
Look, Pim, I know it's our job to help this guy and everything, but I think this guy's a lost cause. He's obviously made up his mind. Why don't we just cut our losses and get out of here?
I think that Chappelle Roan could be non-commercial if she really wanted to, but let's be real, if you were given the choice between criticizing the system while participating in it and making more accessible pop music and making bank, or going the Scott Walker route and making weird experimental music that alienates your audience and making zero money, which one would you choose? Speaking of Chappelle Roan, let's talk about the concept of camp for a second. To me, I don't think you can make something purposely campy. Campiness is unintentional. It's just something that kind of happens. I don't remember who said this exactly, but some TikToker said sincerity is arguably the heart of camp, and I agree with that wholeheartedly.
You are lying. I never hit you. You are tearing me apart, Lisa!
Do you think that while Frank Perry was directing Mommy Dearest, he thought, oh yeah, this is gonna be a campy cult classic that the gays will love? No, he wasn't. There's also a huge overlap between so bad it's good media and campy media, to the extent where the Venn diagram is basically a circle. And for this reason, I would argue that, bear with me, JoJo Siwa is more campy than Chappelle Roan is. JoJo Siwa genuinely lacks self-awareness, and the reason that she acts like a child trying to emulate what they think that being edgy is because she was a child star. She was basically forced to act like a child for the majority of her life. I really despise forced authenticity in all of its forms, and that's probably why I listen to so much outsider music. I have never liked pop punk. In fact, I think the term pop punk is an oxymoron. Admittedly, I do have a nostalgic attachment to Enema of the State by Blink-182, but that's pretty much it. There's this one pop punk band / emo pop band that's really huge. I'm not gonna name them because their fans are totally rabid, but I've been trying to get into this band for so long and I just can't do it. The thing is, the production is great. All of the band members are super virtuosic, but that's exactly what I don't like about them. I would much rather listen to a bunch of teenagers who can barely play their instruments scream their heart out in a garage than listen to a bunch of millionaires who are pushing 30 write songs about their girlfriend from high school who broke up with them.
Yelling band names to his assistant through the door. The kids were like this, who cares if it's great? So he signs a band called Hearts That Hate.
Marty? We've got a hit!
One of my favorite emo releases of all time is Breakwater's self-titled EP, and it sounds like it was recorded in a shoebox, but it is truly emotional. It's not feigned emotion. They weren't doing this for a check. They were doing this because they genuinely had something to say. If your emo band's logo is plastered across like half of the shirts they sell at Hot Topic, I'm sorry, but I don't want to hear it. I see a lot of people saying, goth is a form of punk, you can't be Republican and be a goth, you can't buy from fast fashion companies and be a goth, goth is not mainstream, you can't have a brand deal with this eye contact company and be a goth. But people don't really keep the same energy for emo, which is weird, because emo is short for emo-core, which is short for emotional hardcore. The removal of core from emo-core is very symbolic. The emo movement was originally founded as a rebellion against the macho attitude in hardcore, and now it's associated with what are basically whiny boy bands. While we're on the subject of the corporate takeover of emo, let's talk about industry plants for a second, and the way that people pick and choose which industry plants they call out for being industry plants, and which ones they don't. There is an artist, and I'm not going to name this artist because she also has a rabid fan base, but this fan base has kind of a very parasocial relationship with her, similar to Chappelle Roan. They are mostly LGBT teenagers, and they kind of treat her as like the spokesperson of her community, even though I don't think she's ever said she identifies as LGBT, and they kind of take her word as gospel. Her father happens to be a war criminal who worked for the CIA, and every time you bring this up, people say, she's not her father, which is true, she's not her father. But how do we know that she's not a CIA-funded psyop to demoralize the bisexual barista community? I think that the reason why this artist in particular has escaped industry plant allegations is because people kind of project their own morals and experiences onto her music, even when she's explicitly come out and said, this song is not about what my fans think it's about. Like, can you imagine if people found out that Sabrina Carpenter's dad was a war criminal who worked for the CIA? She'd get absolutely ripped apart. I've also seen a lot of people call the Sex Pistols industry plants, and I get it, punk is supposed to be anti-corporate, but you have to remember that Malcolm McLaren literally just discovered these random kids in the street. He specifically chose them because they looked disheveled, and he thought that would fit Vivienne Westwood's aesthetic. Like, they were living in a squat house when he discovered them. They were definitely not industry plants in the modern sense of the term. They were not Nepo babies. The Sex Pistols weren't like these paper dolls that Malcolm McLaren was playing dress-up with. It was more like the other way around. He saw punks on the street, and he was inspired by their fashion. I don't know how you can have Green Day patches on your battle jacket or listen to the other emo pop band that shall not be named and then call people posers for being into the Sex Pistols. Like, it just doesn't add up. I'm sorry. I've also seen some of the people who hate on the Sex Pistols talking about how much they love Nana, and that's almost like saying you hate pickles but you love cucumbers. It just goes to show you how people just parrot whatever opinion is popular on social media at the time and don't do their own research. I like Nana, but pretty much every single panel in that book is a Vivienne Westwood advertisement. And criticism of modern-day John Lydon is totally warranted. I mean, he's an asshole. But the Sex Pistols were never like a conservative band. Johnny Rotten just happened to become a conservative asshole. Like, I understand punk is anti-capitalist, but I feel like some of you guys are kind of going through mass psychosis right now. Like, I saw someone tell a girl the other day that she was a poser because she went to a punk bar wearing an outfit inspired by a Bratz doll, and Bratz dolls are a brand. The alternative community is absolutely fucking cooked right now. Everyone is worrying about this inconsequential shit, and then nobody's talking about the real issues. Like, can we talk about all of the former mean girls who used to hate on alternative people who are now alternative? I've seen so many people say something along the lines of, everybody thinks I'm like one of those weird GSA kids who goes by fart self pronouns, but I'm really just a normal basic white girl at heart. Like, trust me, girl, we know. You're lip-syncing to an emo rap song in every single one of your videos, and your boyfriend looks like Jesse Pinkman if he was a Sheen warrior. You can always kind of tell when an alternative person only became alternative because it's a trend now. They just kind of have a certain look to them. Like, no contact lens will ever be opaque enough to hide the evil in your soul. I remember one time I walked by this girl in public who was wearing one of those Sheen Affliction shirts, and I think she had a wolf cut, and she looked at me, and she covered her mouth like she was trying to stifle a laugh, and then she turned to her friend and kind of looked at her like... It does kind of bother me when people say, goth is whatever you want to be. You can look and act completely normal and avoid subverting social norms in any way and still be a goth. Because this is exactly how subcultures get watered down and commodified. This is why you have guys walking around saying, I want a big titty goth GF when they actually mean an e-girl. Goth is so much more than just like a music-based subculture. And I'm not just talking about the political aspect. It's like no one reads Poppy Z Bright anymore. I got a lot of hate for saying that neo-trad goth is not the same as 80s trad goth. And people were saying things evolve over time, get over it. And it's like, yeah, things evolve over time, but the trad in trad goth stands for traditional. If people started walking around wearing crop tops while calling themselves tradwives, then people would make fun of them, because the trad in tradwife stands for traditional. Nobody said that you have to dress like a carbon copy of Susie Sue to be goth. It's just that this new style is not trad goth. And with that, that's pretty much all the pretension I can muster up in one day. So, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.